Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer described the minister's analysis carried out on how the rights would be incorporated into British law as woefully inadequate. Labour has called for the provisions in the Charter to be guaranteed in full. The document is one of only a few parts of EU legislation that will not be transferred over into British law when the UK leaves the EU in March next year. Theresa May's administration managed to stave off a potentially embarrassing defeat in the Commons last year after it promised to undertake an analysis of the various rights enshrined in the Charter. Keir Starmer is to force a Commons vote on the EU Rights Charter. The promise managed to persuade potential Tory rebels, including one-time Attorney General Dominic Grieve, who backed down from the threat to vote against the government. However, Sir Keir said the analysis published last month failed to guarantee that the 50 basic rights would be protected. Labour will now table an amendment to the EU withdrawal bill, which is due to return to the House of Commons on the 16th of January, seeking to keep the Charter as part of British law. The current draft of the bill states the Charter of Fundamental Rights is not part of domestic law on or after Exit Day. 2. December 14, 2017. Theresa May's Tory Brexit rebels. The document they release fails to provide any assurance that essential rights will be protected once we leave the EU. Labour's Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer, Sir Keir, told The Guardian, the document they release fails to provide any assurance that essential rights will be protected once we leave the EU. On the contrary, it takes rights from the Charter and scatters them to their original sources, the polar opposite of effective human rights protection. We need a cast-on guarantee in law that the rights contained in the Charter will be given the same legal protection as those currently contained in the Human Rights Act. This is not a party political issue. It is about the type of nation we want to be. Parliament is to vote on the issue of enshrining the EU Rights Charter into UK law. Britain should be a proud advocate of human rights. That's why I would urge all MPs to back Labour's amendment to the withdrawal bill when it is debated in January. The Charter covers a number of rights, including the right to a private life, freedom of speech and employment rights which control how workers are treated. Many of the rights outlined in the Charter are already enshrined in other parts of UK as well as EU law, but others are not. A Department for Exiting the EU spokesperson said, the UK has a long-standing tradition of ensuring our rights are protected. Per Prime Minister Theresa May, as we leave the EU, we are taking action to ensure that continues. The EU Charter of Fundamental Rights was never the source of rights in the UK. It was intended to catalogue the rights that already existed in EU law. Under the withdrawal bill, this law is being converted into UK law on the point we exit the EU.